Hello everyone, welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle and I'm an intuitive counselor, energy healer, channeler, and astrologer who loves to bridge the gap between the unseen world of spirit, consciousness, energy, and intuition so that it can apply to your everyday human experience. Today's video is an energy update for the new moon in Gemini on May 26th. So let's go ahead and get into it. By the way, welcome to Gemini season. All right, so this new moon in Gemini is at 6 degrees in Gemini. A new moon is a new beginning. It's a time where we plant a new seed or intention during the creative cycle where it can grow, manifest, come into fruition into our lives. And so a new moon is a great time to tune into yourself, connect with yourself, be receptive, and set your intentions. Having the sun and the moon in Gemini here, these themes of Gemini are really going to come through in this new beginning. And so Gemini is a mutable sign, which makes it adaptable. It's an air sign, which makes it intellectual. It's a masculine sign, which makes it extroverted. And so you can think of the archetype of Gemini as, someone who's in a bookstore and they are just passionate and curious, and they're going from book to book to book to book to book, and they're reading a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. They love to learn new information. They're very curious and playful, and they're kind of like a jack of all trades. They know a little bit about everything. They're really skilled at those social communication type conversations, kind of meeting people where they're at, learning through contrast and duality, embracing the different perspectives that we all have, learning about the other person, embracing the dualities of life, the shadow, the light, the mind, the intuition, all the ways that we have contrasting sides of ourselves. This new moon is going to be conjunct Mercury, Hygeia, the goddess of miraculous healing, and Sedna, another transformative goddess. But we also even have a little bit of Uranus conjunct this new moon. There's a very wide conjunction with Uranus at 27 degrees in Taurus that's also influencing this new moon. Uranus is the planet of chaos and disruption. It's the higher mind. It's innovative. It's unpredictable. But it can also help us have breakthroughs and awakenings. Now, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is going to be in a conjunction with this new moon. That influence of the planet Mercury is going to be baked into this new moon. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. It's a very neutral planet, and Mercury can travel into any territory. It has access to our higher realms, our human, earthly realms, as well as the underworld. And so it can translate messages from anywhere so that we can understand it. Mercury in general is kind of like our communication styles, how we think and process our ideas. It's kind of a busy energy. It's kind of a quick energy. And being in Gemini, I think it could be easy to get overwhelmed and mentally stimulated, and it's going to be important not to get scattered. And so I would, recommend for anyone who's sensitive to energy in Gemini season to just pause every now and then and take a deep breath in and make sure you bring your awareness, not just, all around your head, but to bring it down into your body to make sure that you're grounded. Because there could be a lot of energy, processing in our minds, a lot of mental activity in Gemini season, especially in this new moon. So we also have Hygeia, the goddess of miraculous healing, conjunct Mercury and this new moon. And so this is going to bring a new beginning that helps us heal, possibly heal something related to our communication, our minds, the way we process and think, the way we teach, the way we learn. It's going to be a very healing new beginning. However, it's conjunct Sedna, And the story of Sedna is, I'm just going to put it in a nutshell, simply put, Sedna had a father that was very angry with her. And they were on a boat together, and her father tried to kick her off the boat, and she was hanging onto the boat for dear life with her hands. And to get her off the boat, her father chopped off her fingers so that she fell to the bottom of the ocean, and she went through a transformation. She died, she went through a transformation, and she became a goddess. And so this story speaks to us about things that we're hanging on to. In this case with Gemini, it might be ideas, communication styles, thoughts, messages, things all related to Gemini that we might be hanging on to, and we actually need to let go of it so that we can let it go, let it die, let it release, so that we can go through a transformation in our communication. We can go through a transformation in our minds. We can go through a transformation in the way we socialize and think and process and get around. And having Uranus in the mix, Uranus is actually in Taurus at the 27th degree in this new moon. So it's in a wide conjunction with this new moon, but it still has an influence on things. So Uranus is the planet of chaos and disruption and spiritual awakenings and just being awakened in general. And it's the higher mind. It's innovative. It can help us have breakthroughs. It's kind of like when disruption happens, it interrupts a pattern, and we can then allow a new kind of intelligence to come in, bring about a different potential or a different situation. And oftentimes that can happen in very unexpected ways, in ways that don't quite make sense to our mind, but in ways that, help us awaken to a higher intelligence that is in fact kind of shifting the energies for us. It can also bring about very different and quirky and out of the box kind of ideas and behavior and communication. And so with this new moon, it might be that you get an idea that's just very different and outside of the box. It might be that this new beginning has, a lot of originality and authenticity in it. It's very unique in some way. The conversation that Mercury is having is really important. I think one of the things that's standing out to me in this new moon is that there is a trine with Pluto and Mercury. And, again, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. It can go into the underworld and bring messages of transformation, death and rebirth, and even our shadows up to the surface around this new moon. But it's a trine, which is showing us that it's going to be supportive to us. It's going to come in, it's going to fall into our laps, it's going to be easy. And so, around this new moon, we could be purging something, because Pluto is the planet of depth and complexities and research and death and rebirth and transformation and power and control. And so oftentimes Pluto can help us purge something. And so this new moon could help us heal by allowing us to purge, thoughts, beliefs, old communication that we need to let go of. That's one way that this new moon could play out in this new beginning. But it's definitely could play out in so many ways, like deliver another message or understanding of the overall transformation that we're navigating right now. And if you want to know what kind of transformation you're navigating right now, you want to look at the house where Pluto is transiting. If Pluto is in your first house, for example, that means you're going through a transformation around your identity, your physical appearance, the way other people see you, your personality. That's all going through a long-term transformation. If Pluto is in your second house, that would be a transformation happening with your income, your money, your personal values, your self-worth, your material possessions. We actually began a new cycle with Pluto at the beginning of this year with Mercury. Mercury was conjunct Pluto on January 28th, and that was right around the new moon in Aquarius. And so you can think about that time at the end of January. That was a time where you were likely processing something related to this transformation. You were getting a message, you were getting some ideas, you were processing some thoughts. It could have been dark thoughts, could have been deep thoughts, could have been, something like a crisis. It could have been something positive, but it could have been something, that began around that time when you're like, this is a part of the transformation. This is the direction I need to go in. I need to, figure this out, right? And then Mercury continued to transit. It goes into Pisces next, and then, Aries, and then Taurus, and then Gemini. And what's interesting is Mercury was in a sextile to Pluto at the beginning of March, on March 5th. And then it went retrograde, and it did another sextile to Pluto while it was retrograde on March 25th. And then it went direct, and it did another sextile to Pluto on April 20th. And so at that time, we were in a sextile, with Pluto, going back and forth, in and out of a sextile with Pluto with Mercury. And so a sextile is basically a conversation with Pluto where we kind of have to go out of our way to get that message from Pluto. We have to embrace an opportunity. We have to go out of our way to get information, to get an idea, to receive a message. But if we go out of our way, then we can, download that information or have that necessary purge, and so we may have, with Mercury going retrograde at that time, and eclipse season, also with Venus, retrograde, we may have gone into March with a certain idea about what that transformation might look like. And then we may have been taken on a detour, where we had to go back and rework some things related to that transformation. And then we had to go forwards again and kind of go back over our path again, and getting more clarity, getting more mental understanding about this transformation and how it's going to work, or, how it's going to play out, or what we need to do, just having more clarity around processing that transformation. Mercury eventually went into Taurus. And Mercury and Taurus squared Pluto during that Scorpio full moon in May. Right? And so around the full moon in Scorpio, we had a square with Pluto. Mercury was squaring Pluto. And again, you could have had intense thoughts around the Scorpio full moon. You could have had fixated, obsessive thoughts. You could have been processing something very deep. You could have received messages internally or externally around death, rebirth, this overall transformation happening related to that house. Okay, and it could have felt like a challenging message, because a square is challenging. So something around that overall transformation you're going through, you recently, in the month of May, got a message around that transformation. Maybe it's not as easy as you thought it would be. Maybe there's something, standing in your way. Maybe there's something difficult that you have to process and get over and move on from. You got to let it die. You got to release your attachment to it in order for you to move on and embrace this transformation. But what's good about this new moon is that Mercury is trining Pluto. That's a very supportive aspect. That means this message, this understanding of our transformation, the support we need for this information, this transformation regarding our communication, our thoughts, our ideas, the way we understand it, is going to come in easily at this time. And so that could look like purging thoughts around the new moon. That could look like, coming into, a positive event related to that transformation. It could be something that falls into our laps that gives us an idea related to this transformation that we can plant a new seed around. Another thing that's happening with Mercury is that it's going to be in a sextile with Neptune. Neptune is in Aries now, and it's also going to be in a sextile with Saturn. Saturn will also be in Aries at 0 degrees. So that's a pretty close conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, and Mercury is going to be in sextile to that. And so Neptune is a planet that dissolves. You know, it kind of dissolves structures, it dissolves boundaries. And then Saturn is a planet that does the exact opposite. It brings structure, it brings boundaries, it restricts, you know, it brings maturity, it brings responsibility, it brings commitment. Neptune can bring fog and confusion. Neptune can have us scattered, you know, and so something about our thinking and our processing, you know, we might have to really go out of our way to, you know, get clarity. You know, we might have to kind of embrace an opportunity, you know, a supportive opportunity to bring structure to something that doesn't have structure. It could be where we're becoming aware of something that needs to dissolve in order to be rebuilt. It could be about something we're trying to initiate in our lives, you know, but with this sextile to the new moon, we have the strengths of these planets that are coming with us. We have the opportunity to bring that energy with us in this new beginning, that energy of commitment, the energy of long-term results, the energy of putting in the discipline and the effort and the work for our long-term results, the structure that we need, the resources that we need possibly. Also Neptune helping us bring creativity, helping us bring our connection to the spiritual world, helping us to bring empathy, you know, helping us to transcend in ways. That's all an energy that we're taking with us in this new moon. So this new moon does have opportunity. It has creative opportunity. It has opportunity around structure. It has opportunity around dissolving and rebuilding. And with that being in Aries, that brings, you know, that maturing experience around what we initiate, how we initiate it, how we show up for work. You know, with Aries is really good at starting things, not really great at maintaining things. And so this might be the challenge with Saturn and Aries, is that, you know, we actually have to maintain what we start, you know, in this new beginning. We have the opportunity to do that, but we actually have to show up and do the work to do that. All right, so I want to go ahead and pull some cards for this new moon to see if there's any intuitive messages that want to come through. And so the card decks I'm using today, one is the Light Seers deck to pull some tarot cards. And because it's Gemini season, I wanted to pull out some archetype cards, because Gemini can be kind of like that social shapeshifter sometimes, and we can play with some archetypes in this reading. And then I brought about Ascended Masters. All right, let's start with the first card that came out, which is Persistence. And it's Lu. This is a Celtic sun god. And this message is really, I think, coming in to talk about the influence of Saturn with this Gemini energy. Gemini can be at times scattered, at times not necessarily fixed, and being consistent in their actions. You know, it's a mutable sign, so it can be very multitasking, and it can be all over the place at times, and it can also just be kind of moving from one thing to the next. And sometimes when we're overwhelmed and we're overstimulated, we can even procrastinate. And this is a card that's talking about the importance of consistent action, the importance of big projects that need to be broken down into smaller projects so that you can celebrate yourself as you know, achieve those goals. But this is also a card that says, hey, like, you're close to these goals, you're ready for these goals, you can achieve these goals, keep going. So this card is, you know, kind of like saying something that you have already established, maybe something that's already in your life can, you know, you can add more discipline to that, you can add more work to that, you can show up for that more, you can put in the work, and you can with positive thinking and action, really manifest something that's going to bring, your dreams into reality. And so this is kind of saying, hey, you might have tendencies to be like a Gemini in this new beginning and be kind of adaptable and doing a lot of things at once, and maybe even get distracted or scattered. And this card is saying like to mature that energy and really be persistent with something that you're committed to, that you're dedicated to, something that you want to manifest. Now, immediately when I look at this card, there's this bright light coming from his forehead here. And it just reminds me of someone that has vision, someone that is envisioning a dream, envisioning something they want to build, envisioning a new idea, but they need to, do the work for that idea. And one of the metaphors that I'm sensing with this card is the difference between, that story of the tortoise and the hare, where they're both going on a race. And, the tortoise is very consistent. It's slow, but it's very consistent. And then the hare is really fast. It speeds ahead, it rushes, it gets distracted. And eventually the tortoise is the one that finishes the race. I know. So this is kind of the wisdom coming through around this persistence. It's like, yeah, be willing to be slow, be willing to be consistent, because that's what's going to get you to your goal, not necessarily how fast you can get there, how quick you can get there, and how distracted you can get along the way. Another card that came up through the tarot is the Emperor. This is like the divine masculine. This can be a strong leadership energy. It can be very confident energy. You see this person in the card, they're confident, they're relaxed, they're kind of the emperor of the entire empire or kingdom, right? And they have this energy of Mars and the horns here. And it's an active energy. It's an energy that asserts itself. It's an energy associated with Capricorn. Again, that's Saturn energy of authority and confidence and leadership. And so we definitely have the opportunity to bring our divine masculine into this new beginning. In fact, in this card, you can see this light that's coming in. That's kind of like coming in and over this man that's sitting on Mars. So it's something that's higher that's coming in to kind of bless this action, to bless these maneuvers, to help the divine masculine assert itself, to lead, to, take control, to come into authority on some level. I'm really sensing that Aries energy that comes into this new moon. There's a sextile with Saturn in Aries as well as Neptune in Aries. And so I'm just sensing that there can be a part of us that really wants instant gratification, really wants to get something started and have results immediately, and where our masculine energy is carrying a shadow around just headbutting everything and just kind of going directly towards it and just like being, just bulldozing its way through its goals, no matter how hard it is, no matter how challenging it is. And I kind of see that as a healing that's happening in our masculine energy. Like there's this healing coming in that helps us release the shadows around our masculine energy and helps to bring in this divine masculine energy that's just more present, that knows that it's important to move through obstacles and challenges, but does so in a more mature way and doesn't just initiate things, but can stay very persistent with its actions. That's the thing about the divine masculine. It's kind of like what you say you're gonna do, you actually do it. Your actions match your words. There's an integrity between what you say, what you see, what you envision, and what you do. And I definitely am sensing a healing around our masculine energy in this new beginning, as well as like our opportunity to bring in the divine masculine, kind of release old structures of power and authority and come into new divine masculine structures of power and authority and leadership in our own lives. And our ability not just to go for instant results, but for long-term results through consistent action. The other card that came out is the womb, which is interesting because this is a new beginning. It's a new moon. The moon is feminine, and it's got the seed in the womb. And so the womb is very receptive. It's kind of this nesty kind of energy where something is being planted and where something is going through a type of gestation process. And in this case, for humans, the gestation process is like 9 months. And so I'm getting a sense of this new beginning taking time. With the sextile to Saturn, it's kind of like this is a transformation that's happening. It's taking time. With Pluto, Pluto also brings change, but it brings change through transformation. And transformation happens in natural cycles, not necessarily on our time or our convenient time, right? And then Saturn brings long-term gain, long-term results that occur over time, the legacy that we build. And so I'm really sensing that this new moon is bringing in some of heart, some emotion and heart with it too. It's not just a mental new beginning where we have an idea and it's something stimulating and it's something that we think is cool and that we're interested in, but it also aligns with, what our hearts, and it also aligns with our emotions and our feminine energy and what our feminine energy needs to truly create something, that takes time to create something. And you might not see immediate results in this new beginning. It could be something that's gestating. In the womb, you don't see a baby until 9 months later. It takes 9 months, and so you see the belly getting bigger, something's happening in the background, something's happening on a deep level, but you can't quite see it. And I think this new moon is bringing in a message of there's kind of like an alchemy that's happening, there's a healing that's happening, there's a transformation that's happening. It's something that's cooking, right? Something that's cooking. You're preparing the fire for something to cook, right? And something's going to be cooking there and it's going to take time, right? And so I just kind of sense the importance of patience, the importance of being aware of something that doesn't show immediate results in the world, but nonetheless very important to keep putting in consistent action. All right, guys, it was lovely tuning in with you. If you're interested in a psychic reading, an energy healing, or an astrology reading, go ahead and check out my links in the description box below. I'm also on Instagram. I just signed up on TikTok, you guys. So I would love it if you go over to TikTok and follow me over there, or go over to Instagram and follow me over there. On Instagram, I usually post my monthly group sessions that are really affordable to join. And each month I come up with a unique topic for our group energy healings, as well as our guided meditations and channeled messages. On TikTok, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. Probably short videos around astrology, transformation, energy awareness, psychic development, intuition, sensitive people, spiritual evolution. So yeah, if you're into those topics, go ahead and follow me on TikTok. I'm going to try making videos over there too. And yeah, definitely leave me a comment. I would love, love, love to hear from you. Let me know what kind of Gemini placements you have, if you have Gemini placements in your chart, or let me know what house Gemini is ruling in your chart, and I'll let you know what that house represents if you're not sure what that house represents. And if any of you could track the message that's been coming through from Pluto, from where it started the cycle with Pluto in Aquarius, around that Aquarius new moon, and where it went through its kind of retrograde experience in March, and that sextile with Pluto in March and April, and the square that happened in May around the Scorpio full moon. Like, if you have a storyline that was developing around this overall transformation that you're in, please share it with me. I would love, love, love to hear those examples from you. I hope you guys have a very enlightening, easeful, graceful new moon in Gemini, and I wish you all the good in the world for you. Okay, take care. Bye.